Hey, hello, and welcome to the first ever Tactic Talk podcast. And this is something that obviously I've wanted to do for quite a while. By the way, I'm Sarthak Sharma. Today I've got a very special guest with me, a friend of mine, and also a Chelsea fan. Ritwik Mitra is with me
Hmm,
today. And
Not something I am very proud about right now, but yes, I am a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, obviously we'll get into that about Chelsea's season and of course the whole managerial situation. But of course, this is a podcast which I wanted to start for a while to not only give you updates on the transfer window, but also to discuss the ins and outs and all the happenings that have been going on in the world of football, European football to be exact. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get started. Ritwik's obviously a Chelsea fan, and he's been watching and following the team for a very long time, as well as also other football teams, which we'll get into very
Hmm,
shortly. So, Ritwik, let me just quickly start with you. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was not actually Chelsea, but
hmm,
the fact that we've had just a few hours ago, we've had an announcement from Bayern Munich. Vincent Company has been named as the new head coach for the Bavarian side. And it's something that obviously I've reported as well on Tactic Talk. It
hmm.
was something they wanted to do. But perhaps to many, a surprise that he got the job, having not had a great season with Burnley in the Premier League. So, what are your thoughts on that? Were you surprised, and what do you make of this announcement?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a very puzzling thing that has happened, especially after Burnley's been relegated with company at the helm. He's not really proven himself to be a top level manager, and seeing him get the Bayern job is incredibly surprising. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I think people could not believe the fact that Bayern was looking at company after the string of top tier managers that they have had. And yeah, I don't see how this happened. Whether I don't think it's going to reap results, but again, football is unpredictable, so anything can happen. But yeah, personally, I find this to be a very weird appointment. I don't see him staying there till the end of the season. He'll probably have to do something really amazing to convince the squad that he has the capabilities to lead a team of Bayern's caliber, especially. So yeah, let's wait and see. I personally, given my experience with the mid-table managers coming to manage my team, it's been a very up and down. It's very unpredictable. You can't say anything aside from what's on the face of it. But as far as I can see, this is not a great decision from Bayern, a team that has they haven't really been on the mark with the manager hirings, and their top tier decision making is what I feel. So yeah, let's wait and see how it goes.
That's actually really great analysis, and I think that's something that most fans have also, felt because I saw that, a few times since I also initially reported it, perhaps a week and a half ago, about
Mm,
company possibly being considered, and he was always a very, like a top option for them, which was surprising. But it became very clear that they were going to go that path. They had meetings with Thomas Tuchel, and initially there was a belief that probably he might continue despite them. In back in February, I believe they had made the decision to get rid of him, and they had spoken with him, and it was kind of like a done deal. It was very public. But since then they realized that they actually don't have that many options in the kind of the managerial side of things. So having looked at different managers all around Europe, having seen their availability or lack of, they probably had that feeling in their mind that Thomas Tuchel could probably continue. But I think that obviously didn't go, the way that probably Tuchel might have wanted or even Bayern might have wanted. And they've obviously thought of Vincent Company as someone who can take it forward. And in fact, from what I understand, it's also something about his work with young players that he's done at Burnley and previously before that as well. And also, I think it's really important that if you see, Pep Guardiola has actually been coach of Bayern Munich as well, right? And he has in the past, of course, he's also managed company at City, and he's worked with company, and he's been very very appreciative of company's abilities as a coach. So, who knows? I mean, all of that stuff kind of really works in your favor. I mean, if you look at Mikel Arteta, who worked under Pep Guardiola as well, and I think people were surprised when he was named as Arsenal coach when he didn't have a lot of experience. So but see how well that's turned out. Like Arsenal have been fantastic last couple of seasons. So I think it's a good move in the sense that it's something planning for the future, which is a lot of top clubs I feel haven't been doing that in terms of their managerial appointments. If you see, it's mostly been instant success formulas which they've used. So hopefully, let's say, I mean, for Bayern fans especially, that it's something that can translate into success for them. But definitely surprising if you were just someone who was a casual follower and you saw
Mm.
that this guy was managing Burnley and you got relegated with the team and you're like, oh my god, how has he got the job at Bayern? So it's very interesting. But these that's how it is. You can't predict a lot of these things. So I think we'll just have to wait and see, and it might turn out to be a great appointment in the end. Um, Speaking of great appointments, a former Bayern Munich coach who actually won the Champions League with Bayern Munich has now gone to Barcelona. Again, controversial probably. A lot of football purists would feel Xavi being sacked was quite
Mm.
surprising. But this is how Barcelona work. Like, I mean, I'm not going to mince words. I think Barcelona has been the most mismanaged football club in the last 15, 20 years at that level, So I don't want to say that they're mismanaged now, but certainly I didn't think that Xavi deserved to be sacked. But now that he has been, Hansi Flick has been named as the new Barcelona head coach. What do you make of Hansi Flick? Obviously, he's had quite a decorated career behind him as well as a coach. 8-2 against Barcelona, if people forgot about that. So, what do you make of his appointment, Ritwik?
It's interesting, definitely. I think his time at Bayern Munich was amazing. I mean, that's the reason why he got the job to manage Germany. And that is, I think, one sticking point where people can raise doubts about this appointment because he did not perform to the level that people would expect, especially from a manager who had won, who was just killing it with Bayern Munich. I mean, sorry, with no, sorry, with Bayern Munich. Like they were pretty great, and to see him not reach that level with Germany was not a great sight. They had just let go of a manager who had been them for, I think, more than how many years? It was quite long, like at
Yeah,
least a decade, if not more.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that given Barcelona's missteps that have happened recently, like for quite some time, they would want to appease a manager who would demand the highest from the players and the board. And whether he will be happy in this job, whether he will be able to communicate with the board and get the squad that he needs to play his style of football is something that is going to be interesting because I mean Barcelona's financial situation is something that a lot of people are aware of. They have been selling rights left and right. They have been scrambling to get transfer funds for quite some time now. And at that level, you should be investing in a team that is easily looking to challenge for the title, win, in fact. But whether Flick will be comfortable in that position, whether he will be able to channel what made him great at Bayern Munich, that is something that only time can tell.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also important to remember that he has a lot of experience managing a certain Polish striker by the name of
Hmm.
Robert Lewandowski. So I think that might help. And I think if there's anyone who'd be excited by the appointment of Hansi Flick, I think that would be Lewandowski, because we know what Lewandowski is capable of, right? Like, I mean, he may be older now, but he still has that killer instinct. He's still one of the top goal scorers in the world, if you ask me. I think honestly, I feel like he was robbed of the Ballon d'Or in 2020. He
No,
deserved.
you and everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, he was by far the best performer that year, and obviously Bayern had won the Champions League as well, and he was the top goal scorer and all that stuff, and despite that, I think the decision to not have it that day, that year, was kind of puzzling to say the least. Lots of reasons possibly behind that, but I think it doesn't take away from the fact that he's still like an amazing striker regardless of his age. And if you see Barcelona, obviously going to try and build a team around someone like Lewandowski, right? And you will have young players who would be promoted. And Hansi Flick's proved in the past that he can work well with the young players. I know the whole Germany um, job didn't really work out the way that he would have wanted it to. But at the same time, he is a coach with a lot of experience and a lot of, I would say, in top positions, having won the Champions League with Bayern Munich, he's a proven coach as well. So I think there's a lot good to look forward to. But that being said, I don't think I can ever probably, understand the decision of sacking someone like Xavi. And to me, it just, it's Barcelona in a nutshell. They'll have something good, and then they'll find a way to screw it up. So let's see. Hopefully, Barca fans will hope that Flick can be the guy to flick the switch and kind of,
Mm,
uh, hopefully flick their fortunes as well, and turn them into a team that challenges Madrid for the La Liga trophy next season. Hopefully, even more than that as well. All right, so that was, of course, Barcelona and Bayern Munich that we've discussed in a bit of detail. Now let's get to what we actually wanted to discuss. And you being a Chelsea fan, of course, Ritwik, the first thing that I want to discuss is the appointment of Enzo Maresca as the new Chelsea boss. Um, Obviously, really good at Leicester City. To obviously people who haven't been following the championship, or have been, because I've also got a lot of these questions from people like, why Enzo Maresca? Like, there were so many different coaches who were there, um, who could have got the Chelsea job, and who could have possibly been there. There was a lot of talk about Brighton's coach De Zerbi, who was one of the targets. I can assure you that he definitely was one of the targets, as was Kieran McKenna of
mm.
Ipswich Town. And that was actually one of the reasons why they took the decision to very quickly, right after the season, sack Maurizio Pochettino. That decision was actually taken a lot before the season actually ended. So it wasn't dependent on whether Chelsea would be able to get European football or not. It was something that was decided well beforehand. Um, the owners, obviously Todd Bowley and others, didn't feel that Chelsea had performed as well as they could have, and a big reason behind that was the money that they've spent. When you spend the kind of money that Chelsea have spent over the last couple of seasons since they've had new ownership, it is expected that you will not only be in those Champions League positions, but you will be pushing to challenge for the Premier League and more, which obviously, as we know, Chelsea have been far away from doing, right? So, just want to get your thoughts on Enzo Maresca's appointment, the whole decision to sack Maurizio Pochettino. As a Chelsea fan, Ritwik, what did you feel when it happened?
The sacking was surprising for sure. That was, I think, something that no one could have expected, given how well Pochettino performed at the second half of the season. I think last 19 games, Chelsea had the fourth most points in the league, which is impressive given how badly we started. And no one expected it to finish above Newcastle and United, and we did. So that was something everybody was over the moon. Everybody saw something that was building. You said that we invested a lot of money in this squad, but we invested a lot in young talent that needs a guiding hand. And Pochettino has a history of working with young talent and helping them reach levels that just wows everyone. And we could see that. And Nicholas Jackson had a great second half of the season. Cole Palmer was amazing. In fact, you could say in a way he did almost single-handedly help Chelsea reach a sixth place finish. Amazing player. I can't wait. But anyway, besides the point. But yeah, Pochettino's sacking was extremely surprising. I think Chilwell was asked after the Monaco Grand Prix about his thoughts about the sacking. He himself was surprised, and I'm pretty sure he echoes the sentiments of a lot of players whose I mean, not that social media is something to read into, but the way they were talking about his sacking, it was not something that anyone expected. I don't think anybody agreed with that decision. I think a lot of Chelsea fans have been incredibly vocal about how what it feels to be. It's a very poor decision, in my opinion, given that you need a manager. You need to give time to a manager. Arteta didn't strike gold from the get go. He took a few seasons to build the team he wanted, to make people trust in the process. Something that became a meme and now is what the case is. Everybody trusted the process, and they've Arsenal's been amazing for the past 2 seasons. They've been challenging for silverware against a team that is has been the benchmark for the Premier League as to who to compete against, who to challenge for the title. There is all, of course, you can't say that Pochettino was the person who could potentially mount that challenge. He has had experience. He had an amazing Tottenham squad, and the fact that he didn't win silverware with them is a huge point against him, I would say. But given the unstable nature of Chelsea following the Clear Lake takeover, I think we should have stuck with Pochettino, and to see Ekbali and the other people just take him off and sign a manager who I feel, again, as a Chelsea fan, I will trust whatever Enzo brings to the table, and I will trust him until he gives me a reason not to. But he has helped Leicester win promotion, no doubt about that. But I personally, I mean, I checked a few of the opinions of the Leicester fans, the faithful. Obviously, I wanted to see what we were getting to the table, and a common criticism has been that he doesn't have a plan B. He relies on a rigid formula that when it breaks down, he it's just not a great sight. I mean, again, he got them promotion, so definitely that is a huge point for him. That's some like Leicester is one of the most beloved teams in the Premier League. To see them back at the top flight is something a lot of people will be looking forward to. Seeing Jamie Vardy do his shenanigans is something a lot of people will be looking forward to. But to see that and decide that this man is the perfect person for a job that is extremely challenging. You got a squad that has started gelling for what it's worth. They have definitely shown glimpses of excellence. And you really cannot say that he is the right man for the job when he's not had the top flight experience that you would expect. He's done great with Leicester. Before that, he managed Parma, where he did not really do a great job. He had a 28% win rate, which is that's not great. That's again being a manager is a learning process, so it is possible that his time at Leicester has helped him become what he needs to learn how to manage teams. But whether he can hang, like, I think this signing can be equated a lot to Graham Potter's signing and how Potter just lost the dressing room. Pochettino has not had that problem, which was a huge part of why people wanted to stick around and help him manage a squad of egos and help them function as a unit. Whether Enzo will do that, that's again, Chelsea's had a good history with Italian managers. Who knows? Maybe we'll just get something great. Maybe we've struck gold. Maybe we found our Arteta. But ifs, ands, buts, and maybes don't win you the league. So
Yeah, actually, that's really good. Some good points that you've raised and there as well. I think for Enzo Maresca, it's one of those jobs which he can't turn down, if I'm being honest, because the Chelsea job is something that even though you know that technically it's riddled with so many challenges, when it comes to the sackings, number one, but also the pressure from the owners. Previously, it was from Roman Abramovich, and now I'm sure it's still there with Todd Bowley as well. Simply because of the fact that they invest so much money in the squad, and when you invest so much money, you expect instant results, and that instant results aspect is what has been the downfall of many Chelsea managers over the years. Even someone like Jose Mourinho, who's probably the most celebrated Chelsea coach, I would say, of all time. Um, Even he wasn't spared when they didn't perform, and it's not like they performed extremely badly, but uh, even mid-season, if you're not performing, you will get the sack. And I feel like that somewhat has stayed, even though Todd Bowley gave Pochettino the chance to kind of cement himself beyond the season. But I can still see that element is there, and to me, the Enzo Maresca appointment is symptomatic of that same style of ownership, of management, of appointments. And it's interesting that you talked about what he did before Leicester City, and the fact that he didn't have a great win rate um, is a bit concerning, because obviously you cannot be, as you said, a one trick pony. You said that he doesn't have a plan B, right? Being a one trick pony in the Premier League will get you in all kinds of trouble, right? If I'm being honest, you might have the best style of play for a team like Leicester, but applying that to a team like Chelsea will be very difficult. And I think to one manager that you named as well, Graham Potter, tried doing that. When he moved from Brighton to Chelsea, wasn't exactly effective in doing that. I still feel like Graham Potter is a much better manager than Chelsea made him look, because I feel like he wasn't given time, and I also think that um, he wasn't treated the best way. I've had the opportunity to meet with Graham Potter several times, and I've been around Brighton as well, and he is genuinely one of the smartest minds in football. But the fact that it didn't work for him at Chelsea, and I think if you see towards the end of his press conferences, his interviews, he looked very deflated. It seemed as if he knew that the appointment was coming to an end, like he knew his time was coming to an end, and Chelsea were kind of ruthless in that, right? So I feel like Maresca has to be prepared for that when he comes in, and he has to have, as you said, plan Bs. He has to be able to gel with a squad that has, I think, according to me at least, has managed to gel pretty well with Mauricio Pochettino. There was a togetherness at Chelsea. The players did like him, as you said, and he definitely had the dressing room in a very good place. But this is Chelsea Football Club, right? And this is what they do. They will continue to sack the managers if they don't get the results that they want. So whether Maresca will be able to perform the way that he has at Leicester, only time will tell. But I think it's certainly very exciting for Chelsea to be able to see a good brand of football being played first and foremost, and hopefully get the results as well along the way. All right, so a team that was very close to Leicester City in the championship table also got promoted to the Premier League.
Mm,
Ipswich, with a manager by the name of Kieran McKenna. He has been very, I think, popular suddenly in the last 2 3 weeks. His name has come out a lot, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, Chelsea sacking Mauricio Pochettino, immediately looking for a new coach. Kieran McKenna was one of the guys that they had their eye on. Another team that had their eye on him was Manchester United, and this is obviously something that United know very well what he's capable of. McKenna was obviously, for those who don't know, he was backroom staff and under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for multiple seasons at Manchester United, and was probably the most liked and respected in that United dressing room, because he was the guy who would do the training drills with the players. If you guys are familiar with it, Ole never really hardly ever did the training sessions directly. It was Kieran McKenna and Michael Carrick who used to organize them. And McKenna in particular really impressed not just the players but also those up at United, that he was a coach who was to be taken very seriously. And I think he did absolutely the right thing once Ole got sacked by United. He went on and tried to manage clubs lower down, got the opportunity, and he's done extremely well at Ipswich. For a team like Ipswich to get promoted to the Premier League, and I think they also scored the most goals in the championship, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a huge achievement what he has managed to do there, and the fact that there are clubs who are looking at him, to name a few, Chelsea, United, and Brighton as well. Which I thought Brighton would be a great appointment for someone like him as well, but we'll get into that. McKenna is basically the real deal, if I'm being honest, right? He's got that ability. He's very good tactically as well, which is a criticism of Solskjaer, what a lot of people had at United. But McKenna understands that side of things probably a little bit better, I would say. Um, and there was a lot of hope that perhaps he was going to come up to the Premier League, not with Ipswich, but with another team. However, I understand that that's not going to be the case. Ipswich and McKenna have reached an agreement for continuing at the football club and signing a new contract, which means that neither United nor Brighton nor Chelsea are going to get an opportunity to get his services. But obviously, United were in prime position had they, had he not signed that new deal. So speaking of United, obviously it's a very tricky situation which is going on at United at the moment. They've just won the FA Cup, and in many ways that has thrown a spanner in the works. What I mean by that is the club had taken a decision internally, and actually, as of right now, still that decision stands. There is a performance review of a season going on, but a review of the season is more from, if I'm being honest, less, of course, from a performance point of view on the pitch, but also from a backroom perspective. United are taking, under Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, are taking massive strides to lower their workforce behind the scenes. So even non-footballing activity, things like that. But on the pitch are looking very much to find a new coach, if I'm being honest. And that's something obviously that I've reported. And a lot of people have been like, no, it can't be, this is not what they're doing. But indeed, that is the path that they're wanting to go towards. However, FA Cup win was incredible, and nobody expected it. Certainly, I didn't. But the way that they won was surprising, but also I think in United fans' minds really proved that Erik Ten Hag should be the guy to continue at United, right? And I won't give you my opinion on that, but what I will say is that he has been, he has struggled with a lot of injuries at United this season, and that has played a massive role in where United have ended up in the Premier League. But they've ended up with a massive trophy by the end of it, so you can't like discount that, right? Before we get into what's going to happen with Ten Hag, what do you think of United season? What do you think about Ten Hag as a coach? And as a Chelsea fan, would you like to see him continue at United or not?
As a Chelsea fan, I would, but then again, I think I'm discrediting his work as the manager. You're right, he has faced a ton of injuries. I think he has reiterated that point time and time again that he's played with more than 50 backlines this entire season. Which, yes, I mean, a good defense wins you games, and if your defense is not able to form a proper rhythm or chemistry, yes, you are going to struggle in games a lot. I think Martinez had a injury that benched him for a lot of games this season, and again, I've as much as I've heard, obviously, that there have been too many injuries to really give Ten Hag a fair go of it. But then at the same time, you can't really say that he is not deserving of a lot of the criticism he's getting. I think personally speaking, the way he's sidelined players who have not really agreed with him, maybe, and sure, some of it may be justified. I think Ronaldo's is, as much as people would hate to hear it, I think it was justified that he was like just saying no to a instruction from his manager that he shouldn't have, and he was punished for that, and he didn't take that properly. When it comes to other players, I mean, Sancho is the biggest example of this. I think Klopp recently came out with a statement and said that you can't buy a player for 80 million and send him out on loan. You need to stand by him when everybody is standing against him. If Klopp says that, that means that he does not agree, and a lot of people are justified in saying that the way Sancho was treated is not great. He's in a Champions League final after everything that has happened, which is something nobody could have seen. Nobody could have seen for Dortmund, but again, a different can of worms. But from my perspective, from the games that I have seen, from what I've heard, from what I've seen United fans discuss, they have really mixed opinions on Ten Hag. It's hard to say whether he should continue, but then you look at the this silly season of manager swapping that is going on, and you don't know whether right now is the correct time to sack him, especially when there is not a good replacement in line. I think that whole situation you explained with Kieran McKenna, yes, I think everybody thought that it was likely for him to join, but he's renewed with the switch, which I think is the best decision he could have taken given the uncertainty around other top jobs. So what I think is that maybe he should be given another season, but then again, I'm not the foremost authority on this. I think most United fans would like a change. Whether right now is the time for that is a different question, and I don't think it is.
And honestly, I mean, if you talk about United, they are a club which is always in the news, right? And it's pressure which comes with that. And I think with what you mentioned for about Kieran McKenna, it's something that a lot of managers would find very difficult to do when a team as big as United, and we spoke about Chelsea as well, they come knocking at your door. It's very difficult to say no. But we've seen so many cases where managers have gone from a slightly smaller club or a championship club and gone up to the Premier League and not succeeded and lost their jobs, and as a result lost their um, I would say their integrity in many ways. I mean, they've lost their, whatever charm that they had coming into that club was gone because they got sacked so quickly. I can name a few: Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, um, at Chelsea, of course. And I mean, just just to see that kind of thing happen, it's disappointing because one season ago you're talking about a coach who has all the tools to succeed, and just because he couldn't perform for one season, you end up sacking him. I heard Jurgen Klopp talking about how he loves the Liverpool owners because any other owner at any other club, and he specified London clubs, would have sacked the coach after his first season. I mean, Liverpool didn't have an amazing first season under him, but it's about what you see in that first season that prepares you to give another chance to that club. And I think what you mentioned about Maurizio Pochettino at Chelsea having the backing of the locker room is something which is a huge part of it. And if you talk about Eric Ten Hag, there are of course elements at United, and I say this in a very negative way. There are elements at United who will always try and sabotage. If I'm being honest, they did it with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They did it before that with Jose Mourinho, with Louis Van Gaal. Ralph Rangnick was a, a tough situation to even talk about. They did it with David Moyes as well. They wouldn't dare do it with Sir Alex Ferguson. But there are elements at United that are always going to try and pull the manager down. And there have been enough instances this season as well where local reporters, without naming names, have reported the fact that there have been so-called locker room rifts, players not agreeing with what Eric Ten Hag was selling them, not buying it, not wanting to perform, not wanting to play. Eric Ten Hag, to his credit, came out and absolutely rubbished all of that. Also banned a certain reporter, a certain very top local reporter, from attending press conferences in Manchester because of his reporting of this incident, which he said was utter nonsense. But it paints a picture in your mind, and it's very consistent with what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has said. And if you haven't seen that interview, I would actually recommend all of you to go and check that out. The overlap with Gary Neville and Roy Keane, Ian Wright, and others, wherein Solskjaer talks about the fact that when you have such a big squad, you have massive squads these days, right? 28, 30 players, and you can't play all of those players. Even if you have like a big squad, and if you don't have injuries or whatever, you can't play all those players. And when players don't play regularly, they are going to feel left out, they're going to feel ignored, they're going to feel neglected, they're going to feel like the manager doesn't believe in them. And then you go down that dark path of, I'm going to sabotage the manager, maybe not in those direct terms, but try and create rifts outside, speak to journalists, do that, blah, blah, blah. And maybe ruin the locker room rhythm for your own gain or benefit or spite, right? So that will has happened at United in the past. We've seen it. Pogba, Mourinho, spat. Ole had it with a number of different players as well. And Eric Ten Hag, as you rightfully said, didn't get along with Ronaldo, didn't get along with Jadon Sancho. And I'm sure there are still other players there at the club who aren't big fans of his simply because of the fact they don't get to play, right? Now, whose fault that is, whether it's the coach's fault or it's the player's fault, We can debate that forever, right? Ten Hag will say that Sancho didn't train properly. Sancho will say he didn't give me opportunities. Look at what I'm doing now. I'm at Dortmund. Everything's hunky dory. I've reached the Champions League final. Ten Hag couldn't dream of it. United aren't even playing Champions League football next season. So all of that stuff. At the end of the day, what matters most is results. And I feel like results are very synonymous with what is happening backstage at your club. So you can't treat them as two separate things. They will happen one because of the other. If your backstage mood and your locker room um, mood and support is lacking, perhaps for whatever reason, that will reflect on the pitch sooner rather than later. It's always been the case in football, it always will be. And with Ten Hag, I think even though the performances haven't been there, you saw that FA Cup final. And by then, by the way, the news had already leaked about him possibly being sacked. So to me, I actually thought that that was going to, deflate the United players more than anything else. Because
Yeah,
I
can
would,
I just say, Vapi, that was ridiculous. It was such a stupid
yeah,
timing for the news to come out just before a final.
yeah,
Why why is that happening?
but that is unfortunately a sad reality. The fact that obviously when the owners don't have that faith in the coach. And listen, I can tell you for sure that the owners had made a decision on Erik Ten Hag to not continue with him long before the FA Cup final, right? And I know Ten Hag's gone on interviews and said on record that they have told me that they want to plan with me and they have all these amazing plans and they want to do it with me and blah blah blah. But that's obviously going to be said, right? Behind the scenes, the mood is totally different. It's very much as if they are preparing for a new coach and the atmosphere around the club is to go along with the new coach, right? And it's not something which is new. I struggle to remember, and maybe you can help me out with this, any club which has just got new owners sticking with the manager that they already have. It rarely happens. If you talk about Todd Bowley, when he came in, Thomas Tuchel was actually doing pretty well at Chelsea, but he got sacked. And this was after Tuchel came out and said publicly that, oh, I'm really looking forward to this change from Roman Abramovich to Todd Bowley, and I've had positive conversations with them, and I'm looking forward to what they have. A few weeks later, sacked. You know, and I think we were all in shock when that happened as well. But this is what happens, and um, it's not something which I think owners and managers at this point will obviously say things for the public, but deep down they know what they've decided and what the actual solution to this whole thing is, right? And I think Ineos taking over want to start something new. They want to start afresh at United, and for them having a new coach is part of that. And I also want to bring attention to something which is again a really important point which a lot of people miss. One of the things that Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe want to change at United, other than the facilities and the training ground and things like that, is a style of football that they want coming from the sporting directors, right, and the technical directors. And this is something obviously again heavily reported that United have gone for a new sporting director, technical director, and are changing the whole setup of the club from behind the scenes, which is really important and needed as well. When you have that change, you are not dependent on a manager to decide your style of play. Ever since Sir Alex Ferguson has left the club, different managers have come in with different ideologies and different styles of play. David Moyes had a route one approach. Louis Van Gaal had a possession based approach, which was the most boring football that United have ever played. Uh, Jose Mourinho came in with park the bus mentality. I don't say that in a negative way though. I say it in a positive way that he came with a slightly more defensive minded approach. Then you had Solskjaer, who believed in the Sir Alex Ferguson counter-attacking ideology. Ralph Ranieri, who was always going to be a very temporary arrangement. And then Erik Ten Hag, who tried to combine some elements of attacking and possession-based football to try and control games, which was lacking perhaps at times under Solskjaer. The problem with this is you have way too many coaches with way too many players and way too many thoughts about which player should come in. So when one coach leaves, you have all these players left behind who can't relate to the new coach's ideology, and then they struggle, and they might be on multi-million pound contracts, but what does it account for? It doesn't work. right? So that's why first and foremost they want to have a philosophy which comes in from the root level, from within the club, rather than depend on managers for it. Which is why the manager himself will not necessarily be such an important entity for United in the future. Of course a coach decides who goes on the pitch and how they perform, but from behind the scenes, and this is why I say that Eric Ten Hag getting sacked wouldn't be such a big deal for United, because um, they are starting an approach from behind the scenes which is going to last them hopefully for a lifetime. So again, I'm gone on a bit of a rant, but yeah, long story short, I know United fans really want to have Ten Hag continue. Most United fans do, at least, and I think he has earned that right. But it certainly, as of now, doesn't seem like he would continue. Um, and before I get into who might those people be who might replace him, what do you think in the current setup? Who do you think would be the right man to replace Eric Ten Hag?
I mean, that's tough to say. There's not really a lot of great options in the manager. I mean, not that there aren't, but given United's volatility when it comes to these kind of decisions, I think it's really hard to see who could be a part of a new setup at United. I think Thomas Frank is one of the managers who's been linked with the United job. I think Kieran McKenna was before he decided to renew it with Ipswich instead. I'm not really sure who else could be the right man for the job. I don't see Xavi coming to the Premier League to manage anytime soon. And the way things are going right now, I personally think that sticking to Ten Hag would be the more pragmatic option to take, as opposed to taking a risk with a manager yet to be proven at the top flight. But Thomas Frank could be a decent option. He's worked on a shoestring budget and done great stuff at Brentford. Whether he'll be able to adapt to a top flight team, whether he'll be able to again win over the dressing room, something that has been an issue in at United, at Chelsea, at a lot of top clubs. That is something that you can only see once you appoint him. But as of right now, I personally think that sticking to Ten Hag is the better course of option to take. And I don't say that as a Chelsea fan. I say that as someone who thinks that given how it's just very volatile. I don't think it's a great move to hire someone right now, especially given that there aren't many great options in the market. I think Tuchel has been linked to the job, which it would break my heart to see him at United. So I don't want to see him there, but he has expressed an interest to perform in the Premier Leagues. And I mean, yeah, the Bayern job was not great for Tuchel. It was a lot of questions raised. To finish third with the Bayern team it's not great. It's really a very bad reflection of the time you spent there. And even though reports indicated that Bayern wanted to continue with Tuchel, but Tuchel himself refused, is again, I don't know how true a lot of this is, but from what I see, if Tuchel wants to come back to the Premier League, yes, I think the United job would be a great fit, but I hope that never happens.
Yeah, actually, you very rightfully rightly mentioned that Thomas Tuchel is one of the options that United are considering, um, but it's far from a done deal. And in fact, this United are still looking around to see what they have. I think Kieran McKenna re-signing with Ipswich is a bit of a surprise. Um, and I think if you definitely had your eggs in the McKenna basket, now you're forced to reconsider a little bit, because as you mentioned, even though it's a very interesting time in terms of managerial movement, there aren't like a whole lot of like, oh my god, he's perfect for United kind of managers there at the moment. I think Thomas Tuchel's probably one of those guys who, at least me, I wouldn't think would fit in at United very well, right? Because to me,
Interesting, why?
yeah, because um, see, I think the kind of approach that United have, is very is at least they try to go with a long term approach. They haven't been able to because results haven't been some results have been well quite honestly horrid, right? In terms of
Hmm.
like the season's performance, and that's what forced managerial changes. But I think overall, I still feel like United are a club who wants to give time to their managers, and um, I think Thomas Tuchel probably has kind of worked himself into a corner wherein he's that kind of guy who delivers you instant results, but can he do it year in year out is the real question. And I think for you, obviously, you've seen that level of success with Tuchel winning the Champions League at Chelsea, but following season, not so great. Um, Premier League, not so great. You know, Bayern Munich first season brilliant, second season definitely not great. Um, so there's a gamble involved with Thomas Tuchel, and I think that's why a lot of United fans may not be okay with having Thomas Tuchel there because it's not a guaranteed recipe for success in the long term. And you want at least now that you have new owners, you want a manager who you can have for the next 5 6 years. To me, there's no coincidence that there have been two top, and I would say now maybe three top teams in the Premier League who've been doing well consistently over the years. Liverpool, Man City being the top two, and lately Arsenal, who've
Hmm.
also stuck with Arteta for a few years now. And I understand and give you guys an update as well. He's close to signing a new contract with Arsenal. So he's going to be the guy for them. He's going to sign a long term contract with Arsenal. This is what United need to strive to be. If Liverpool, City, and Arsenal are at that level, United can't be left behind. And I'm sorry to all Spurs fans, you can't be at a Spurs level. You know, a Spurs level in the sense that Spurs have a good thing going for them, and then they change their managers, they change their approach because of their owners. You want to have a sorted combination, something that works long term, and players can understand and adapt to that ideology and perform accordingly. So to me, maybe Thomas Tuchel. Personally, I'm not sure if I would, be vibe with that appointment if it happens. Um, but I'll tell you who else United are looking at is Roberto De Zerbi from Brighton, who announced that he's leaving the club, has left the club actually. He's a player, he's a coach, sorry, whose ideology and style of football probably matches most with what hardcore United fans can relate to. And I think it's been very obvious with the way that he's done at Brighton. Fantastic job at Brighton, by the way. Um, and he has got a similar approach to playing football as say Solskjaer tried to do with the counter-attacking style, and obviously Sir Alex Ferguson had made a very attacking style of football popular at the club, which has been seen in parts under Ten Hag, but not been consistent enough. And obviously you need to be solid at the back as well, which United haven't been this season because of injuries. So there are options, but are those options honestly that lucrative enough that you would want to give up on Erik Ten Hag is the real question. And I think somewhere United have would be shooting themselves in the foot by making a call on this beforehand without having the right replacement. So I wouldn't be. I mean, at this point, while the decision to sack Erik Ten Hag, I understand, is still very much there. They will take their time to announce it if and when they can find the right person to replace him. And once they have that sorted, that's when they will take the decision to sack Ten Hag. Ten Hag, by the way, is not happy with this arrangement, guys. I will make it very clear. He hates the fact that his future is still not sorted on paper. He's on vacation, he's enjoying himself, but at the same time, he's not happy with the fact that there's so much ambiguity. He can't go and talk to other clubs. He would be getting so many offers from clubs if United had sacked him by now. But he can't do that because United's so-called performance review of the season is going on, right? So a lot of factors to consider, Ritwik, and lot at this so-called managerial muddle is probably going to continue for a little while. Um, we've got a Champions League final coming up this weekend, and who knows, if Dortmund win the Champions League, you could have another coach probably in the mix
Hmm.
as well. Certainly not Ancelotti, because he's going to stay at Madrid for another season, and they're going to get Kylian Mbappe as well. Exclusive update. Um, so before we kind of sign off with this Champions League final coming up, what are you thinking? What's going to happen? Do Dortmund have a chance, or is this going to be another one for Madrid?
Easy thing to say, the safest thing to say is that Madrid's gonna win, but I will always support the underdog. I would
Mm.
want Dortmund to win, especially after that heartbreak they had against Bayern before. So
Mm.
yeah, I would like Dortmund to win, but realistically speaking, I think Madrid have this in the bag.
Yep, I think very yeah. I think even for me as a neutral man, I really want Dortmund to do well.
Oh
I
God, who doesn't?
Yeah, and I really want Dortmund to kind of upset the odds. I was really happy that they beat PSG in the semi-final because
Everybody's happy when PSG loses. It's a
yeah,
win for football if PSG loses. I'm so
yeah,
glad Mbappe is leaving that club. He needs to form his legacy somewhere else for sure.
yeah, and he's going to go to Madrid, and he's probably going to make Madrid even stronger next season. So now
Hmm.
imagine a team which could potentially be winning the Champions League next season as Kylian Mbappe. Who's going to stop Madrid? I remember I was talking to someone about 2 3 seasons ago when Erling Haaland, I was reporting he's going to go to going to go to City, and I was like, City just won the league, and I was like, and like you can't, like, how can this team get stronger, dude? Like there are teams who don't have like a decent striker. These guys are like same, actually similar to Madrid. I think that season City played without a striker up front. I think that's Sterling or someone play up
False
front.
nine, I think.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so different style of play. I think Ancelotti has done the same thing with Vinicius and Rodrigo and whatever this season. So to have an out and out, actually Mbappe is kind of not an out and out number nine as well, but he will primarily be in that sort of center forward position only.
Hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. But as much as I also want Dortmund to win, and how cool it would be if they do, um, I think you got to pick Madrid, man. Like the way that the season that they've performed, beating City as well. It certainly looks like it's going to be Real Madrid in the Champions League final.
I
Awesome.
mean, their
Hopefully,
luck in the Champions League is amazing. I wouldn't even call it luck, just their performances have been incredible. They have been hungry for that trophy every single year, this year included.
Mm.
It's going to take something special from Dortmund to beat them for sure.
Yeah. And also you look at the fact that you had there was this sort of record which teams who had won the Champions League could like never won it again, like back to back seasons. And that lasted, I think it was almost like a curse, because I remember United got to the final in 2009, that won in 2008. They lost to Barcelona. 2010, despite an amazing team, Barca lost to Inter Milan. Inter Milan ended up winning it. 2011 against Barcelona beat United in the final. And then that kind of went on and went on and went on. And then suddenly our team with Madrid wins three in a row. I mean, like, ridiculous. And then just that one year to 2014, they won it as well. So they could have potentially had like four or five, whatever. So insane dominance in the Champions League, incredible consistency, and I think most people would have their bets on Madrid to lift the trophy once again. And hopefully, Ritwik, you and I will also get to cover that. Hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be talking about it too. So awesome, first time podcast, Ritwik. This has been great. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Oh, I'm glad that you had me here. More tactic talking podcast for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll do a lot more as well in the future. So thanks, bro, and thank you guys for watching this, and hopefully we'll see a lot more. This was more of like a pilot episode, but we'll be doing a lot more of these as we go on. So yep, keep following the page, and hopefully get a chance to give us some love on YouTube as well. We're just starting out once again, so let's try and build this channel as well as we managed to do on Instagram. So Yep, and the updates will keep coming in. It's going to be a long transfer window, a lot of exciting times ahead. So thanks again, Ritwik, and we'll catch you soon, hopefully.
All right. See you.